I'll say good night. See you in the morning.
Hello, good morning. It's just gone 8 AM in my hot tent. Had a fairly good night's sleep. It did take me a while to get off last night. I was just thinking the camp over and just enjoying the moment really. And it never really got dark. And I suddenly realised it's not a full moon, but it was a few days ago. But the moon was quite full and it was high up. And it was just lighting the tent up. It never really seemed to get dark. Not until I went to sleep anyway. And then I was just watching the last embers and glows on the stove through the window. And then next thing I knew, I had to get up at 4:20 this morning. Just for a call of nature outside. I know that because I had a quick look at my phone, and it wasn't cold out there actually. I didn't feel like I had to urgently dive back in my sleeping bag, so it never really got that cold. I've decided not to light the stove this morning because I've been up about an hour or so. I did have a quick look outside a few minutes ago, and it's not foggy out there. I think that was my feeling. If it was thick fog and really cold and damp, I'd light the fire. So I'm gonna have some excess wood. I'll just go in the woods and just disperse it, throw it. I'm gonna get up shortly and put some hot water on for coffee. Then I've got an all-day breakfast. It's a boil in the bag, a bit like the chocolate pudding last night. One thing I've become aware of the last few weeks at home, you get what sounds like almost a mini dawn chorus, because we've still got seagulls and magpies and blackbirds around us, so you get almost like a mini dawn chorus. And here, about half an hour ago, 40 minutes ago, it was quite loud actually, because we're out in the countryside here. I could just hear this distant roar of traffic. I suppose that'd be over towards Keynsham actually, commuter traffic, maybe heading in out of Bristol or into Bath. Okay, I think it's time to drag myself out and put some hot water on. I've been through this before, but for new subscribers who may be interested in what I'm using, I just have my fairly basic standard kit, which I stick to. This is a Trangia Mini, that's a meth stove I've just lit, giving it a minute or so to bloom up. And it looks like it's almost there, so I'll put the hot water on in a pan. That's just a cheap Van Gogh 2-set pan, and I just chuck that out every couple of years because it starts to scratch and look horrible. These extended lighters are quite good. We use them at home for candles and they're great for camping. It allows you to ignite things like that. I've also got a petrol stove as well, which flares up, and it just saves you singeing all the hairs on your hands. I've got a collapsible plastic cup, an old container with my coffee in. I got that from Woolworths many years ago. Hermesitas, saves bringing sugar. And I bring my water out these days in a Sea to Summit water cell. This is absolutely fantastic. For many years I had a Field and Trek collapsible water bag, but that was so old I was beginning to wonder if it's healthy to use it. I saw this YouTube video where a motorcyclist used one of these and he really rated it. He said what he liked so much was there was these handles on the side which allowed him to tie it with a bungee cord on the back of his motorbike when he went camping. And I thought, that's great, that's exactly what I want. So as you can see, it's got two side handles. It's got a big mouth there with the stopper on. It's also got this on, which is quite good. It's really handy for filling it up under taps and then just maybe carrying it. And as you can see, it's 4 litres. It's actually got a gauge on there somewhere. There you go, to tell you how much is in it. And what I noticed was, soon after lockdown, when I started camping again, I wouldn't fill out of taps for a while. I was just reluctant to do it. And so I started buying mineral water in bottles. And I found then exactly what works for me. 2 2-litre mineral water bottles. I had plenty to eat and drink, do all my ablutions, clean my teeth. On a hot day I could fill my water bottles up, top them up, So it just made me realise, after all these years of guessing and gauging, you know, 4 litres is exactly what I wanted. So these bags come in several different sizes, so you can see I went for 4 litres. So once I've boiled that water for my first coffee, I'll put some more water on, and then I'll be boiling up this Wayfarer's all day breakfast. These are quite expensive, these meals, so I don't rely on them too much. Ideally, I'd rather bring out bacon and sausages and some tomatoes and cook them myself, but on a winter's day, just overnight, it's just much easier to bring one of these. Same with the chocolate puddings as well. It's quite a rare treat. So that's the same as last night. I just scrunched it up, put it in the bottom of the pot, and then cover it with water, and then just boil it for 8 minutes, let it stand, and there's the perforations. You can see that it's quite easy to tear and eat it out the bag with a long handled spoon. You see I'm halfway through my first coffee. I've got the boil in the bag there, it's almost going to come to a boil. Once that starts boiling, I'll set my phone timer for 8 minutes. You can see I've got this little table here. It's called a Cascade Wild ultralight folding table. It just keeps everything about 3 or 4 inches off the ground. It all folds up, very small, very light. It's not much more than corrugated cardboard with a kind of plastic laminate over it. But again, it just stops everything touching the ground and getting mud on it and falling over, that sort of thing. Just, it's hygiene really. I cook outside the tent now with mess because, well, let me just tell you, when I first started hot tent camping, only about 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I watched loads of YouTube videos and tried to learn off other people, and I just invariably knew there'd be lots of mistakes en route. But one of the contentious issues seems to be CO alarms. There's mine up there. I've got one that always stays in the hot tent canvas case, so I can never come out without it. If I come out without it, I won't have the stove, simple as that. So one of the first contentious issues I came across was, should you bring a CO alarm? And most people say yes, you should, because look, you're burning inside a tent. First of all, you've got to be very, very careful of the fire hazard, but also of the build-up of CO gases, carbon monoxide. It's a silent killer. You can't hear it, you can't smell it, you certainly can't see it. That alarm will do all of that for you. Some people I saw saying, no, that's a myth, you really don't need one, it's just a sales pitch, as long as you manage your fire adequately. And I sort of thought, well, what does that mean for a beginner? You know, that's a bit like saying, as long as you manage your money adequately, you'll never get into financial trouble. So I just bought one anyway, and I have set it off a couple of times. And how I've set it off? By cooking inside the tent with that meth burner. Now let me just show you, that's a massive aperture, isn't it, that door, and the stove's right by the door. I thought, flat surface, it's off the ground, it's completely cold because it's the next morning. I had the burner there, just a little bit back actually, to make sure I didn't melt the nylon fly sheet. Each time I did that, it set the CO alarm off up there. So it just shows, even though in a really well ventilated porch right next to the opening, it still was a dangerous build-up of CO. One of the things I would always say is, I would urge people not to cook in their tent porches. I know plenty of people do, and they say it's perfectly safe, but that just demonstrated to me with the CO alarm there is a build-up of carbon monoxide. Now it's very tempting in a winter tent, you know, just with a bit of a vestibule, to cook in it with the door open, but I never do. I used to, but I never have done since I set the alarm off those couple of times. So just a word of warning there, even if you think you're adequately ventilated, there's still carbon monoxide build-up. Okay, the water around the boiling, the bag's boiling. I've just set my timer, so 8 minutes as last night. Take it out for a minute, stand it up. Again, they miraculously drip dry. I don't know how they do it, but they do. And then I'll just eat it out the bag. I tried sitting on that swing there with my coffee, but I was just wobbling too much. It didn't feel safe. So I'm going to take my breakfast and my second coffee over that table there where the runners are going by. As you can see, it's not a bad morning, is it? It's very mild.
Here's some bird song, see a few birds in the sky. As I said, about 7:30, 7:45, that just all went off in unison. It's almost like a spring dawn chorus. Looking back towards Bristol. Oh, I can see the Fry's building over there, the old chocolate factory, which is now the Chocolate Quarter retirement home. That's where I went recently when I explored the Somerdale Bend. You can just hear the distant roar of traffic over there. That'll be the Keynsham bypass, I'd imagine, dual carriageway, all the commuter traffic. Just waiting for my breakfast to boil, then I'll put some water on my second coffee and then head over to that picnic bench there. Okay, 8 minutes. Let's take that off. Put this back on, more coffee, and then I'll fish that out. The water will do for my washing up water later on. Try and recycle everything if I can. Then just leave that for another minute. Okay, leave that boiling away. Got my coffee all made up ready. Let's take my breakfast over to this picnic table. I've just got flip-flops actually and tracksuit bottoms. Feels fine. A little bit of dampness to the ground, not much. The great thing with flip-flops is you can just wash them down when you get home, just wipe them down basically. So this used to be a really nice picnic area. I guess it's to do with the cuts about 10-15 years ago. Doesn't seem to be managed anymore. That one's completely overgrown, that picnic bench. And this one looks like it's seen better days. At least it's a seat, look, where I can sit on this river view. So much litter here. I always try and take any litter when I'm wild camping. I always feel it's my payback really, but there's just too much here for me to do. One day I may even come down here with a couple of gravel sacks and actually bag it all up, but where would I leave it? I'm not quite sure, but I'll give that a bit of thought sometime. May even be able to tie them to my bike and get them back home somewhere. Anyway, time to tuck in this. There's the perforations, just tears across easily. I need to out with the spoon. I've just manipulated it a little bit to give it a good stir, and then I'll do the same when I open it with the spoon. And there it is. As I said last night, I had to wait about 8 minutes for that chocolate pudding to become eatable. I had to wait as long for it to cool down as I did to boil it in the pot. Probably a bit less this morning because I'm outdoors. But the smell coming off that is fantastic. You see, it's very tomatoey, beany tomatoey. You see bits of bacon and sausage in there. You can definitely taste eggs when you eat it. But it really does warm your cockles on a morning like this. When I go away cycle touring for my fortnight in the summer, I normally take a couple of these actually, just for treats really, or emergencies. Backup foods, and I normally have a couple of army surplus MRE meals. I just buy Lucky Dips. These are the ones about almost to go out of date, so they sell them off in Lucky Dips. So you pay your money, you take the chance. Not my favourite food, but again, they're ideal for emergencies and backups. You've always got something. I could just see, looking back at my tent there, that the pot was boiling over. There was steam coming out, so I've just been over, made myself a second coffee. Just going to sit here and chill with that. Then I'll start thinking about packing up. Maybe a little bit about my upcoming plans actually, and the videos you're likely to see in the next few months. I did say before Christmas I was starting another little winter project, I called it. It'll probably drift into spring. Visiting all the Churches Conservation Trust, better known as CCT, properties in the historic county of Gloucester. Haven't forgotten that. There's a train assisted ride I want to do soon. I'm probably going to wait till February for that, because it means getting an early morning train to Gloucester, heading west slightly, and then looping back east, northeast, and then eventually coming back down southwest to Cheltenham. Get a train home from Cheltenham. It's about 55 miles, and for a winter's day ride you're sort of pushing the daylight a little bit. By February the days will be lengthening. I noticed that last night even here actually. Another 2 or 3 weeks and that'll be quite a nice day out, and then maybe just have a meal at Cheltenham and then come home in the dark. So there's that. And also I was thinking, on that group of Gloucestershire CCT churches, there's a few in Bristol actually. I could probably ride over there one day next week and have a look at a couple of those, maybe even 3. There's the issue about being in a city, you know, bike security, so I'll obviously be very, very careful with my bike. So there may be short, fleeting visits, certainly with the bike locked up outside. I'm riding the Jack and Grace 100km Audax next week. It starts up near Ormondsbury interchange where the M5 and the M4 cross. That's a fantastic event, I love that. I may film that, I may not. I'm a bit wary that some people just don't like being filmed, and I appreciate that. I may just do a little bit of vlogging on that, I may not actually, it depends. But it'll be the first chance for me to ride my giant tough road bike, my new touring stroke winter bike, on an Audax actually, so that'll give me a good idea how it feels. When I get home after this, probably tomorrow, I'll take the front rack off, and that'll stay off now until the autumn. And then as spring comes, I want to start champing again. I love looking around churches and I love staying in them. And what I've noticed the last couple of years, you can see it's a new concept and it's evolving. When I first went there were a couple of churches. In fact, the first one I ever stayed in had no electricity. They just gave you some bottled water which had been donated, and there were battery lanterns inside. I think they've realised most people don't like that. I personally did, but I understand why it doesn't appeal for families. And so they don't do that anymore. It's more and more, there's kitchenettes in there and toilets. They realise what people want and don't want. But I've also noticed they've started offering some of them over the winter months. Normally champing is only really from spring until autumn because the churches get too cold in the winter. But, you know, like many churches these days, they've got central heating on. I suppose they can offer them over the winter. So there's a couple of winter ones I may look into going to in the coming years. Hopefully there'll be more and more turning up. It's an alternative to youth hosteling because I just felt like solo youth hostelers have been thrown under a bus really. They're offering you 20% discount at the moment in January. I looked to see what was on offer. It's 20% off £1,000 a night hire for a group. That's just really not affordable for a single person, is it? Plus the fact some of them are looking a little bit shabby these days. I do like youth hosteling, but it's just going in the direction that I'm not comfortable with, which is why I started hot tent camping in the first place, and now champing, especially if champing becomes a possibility during the winter. And to be honest, champing, you've got a whole church all to yourself, sole use. Quite often they're listed buildings, and they're actually cheaper than the room in a youth hostel. So I'm pretty sure when word gets round, it'll start catching on actually and becoming popular. So now's the time to make the most of it. I've actually changed my will, funny enough, in regards to youth hosteling and champing. So just let me briefly explain. I always loved the Quaker concept of youth hostels offering cheap, affordable accommodation for people of limited means, people from my background. And it's just no longer that. They've even washed that out of their marketing spiel these days. It's almost like they're ashamed of their roots. And so I actually had left a legacy in my will to YHA because I wanted, you know, to pass that on to future generations because I'd gained so much from that. I really had, as a young person finding my feet. And so I'm just going to donate a similar amount, I'm not going to go into how much, to the church's conservation trust. I thought long and hard of it, and I get so much pleasure from looking around churches, and they cost a fortune to maintain, not just wear and tear and aging, but you know, some of them are victims of heritage crime as well. So they're going to be the beneficiary of my departure from YHA. So you can see the old railway, which is now the Bastard Bristol Cycle Path, is raised quite a few feet above the river. A lot of it's on embankment, and then where it crosses the river here, we're below that embankment. And I've been seeing them come across ever since I've been up actually. In fact, last night when I was outside, saw 1 or 2 lights going by. I quite often ride along here in the dark. That was really nice, knowing that there's lots of walkers, cyclists, runners using this, even after dark. And I'm cosily tucked down here, you know, inside my hot tent with the log burner roaring, eating my chocolate pudding, and then putting a hot water bottle in my bed. It really worked actually. When I first put it in, I thought, be careful you don't burn your feet. And then I got in and I didn't really feel the need for it. and then as the burner died down, you could tell the temperature started dropping, and I was really glad of it actually. I never really got cold during the night, I really didn't. I don't think the temperatures dropped much below about 5 last night. I was hoping to come out in the snow and the ice, but home commitments meant I just couldn't make that. That would have been nice. I have been out in the snow up on the Mendips before in the hot tent, and it was absolutely fantastic. In fact, the first time I ever went hot tent camping, I was up on the highest point of the Fossway, up in these woods above Shepton Mallet, where the actual Fossway used to run through Beacon Hill Woods. And I woke up at the middle of the night and I heard this rustling, and I thought somebody was outside messing with my tent, or even animals, deer or something. And what it was, it had been snowing. Because of the ridge of the tent, it was actually, the snow had gathered on the tent and it was actually sliding down the ridge of the tent. That's what it was. And I remember opening the door, and it was just like being in the middle of London smog. It was just unbelievable. What had been quite clear and still the night before was just, it was like being in the middle of a cloud. And then when I put my torch on to see what was happening, I could actually see it was snowing quite heavily, and then I looked at the tent and I could see, all this snow was actually running down the tent. So it kept me alive on my very first hot tent camp night. That was about 800 feet on the Mendips in snow. Well, it still feels early. Just really been enjoying sitting here, thinking over my thoughts, just watching everyone go by on the bike track. Guess it's time to start packing up. Just checked my watch and it's 9:20, so it is getting on a little bit. I'm in no hurry whatsoever. If anybody comes and tells me to move on, well, I am moving on, aren't I? So get a little bit of washing up done first. I've just boiled some water. There's not much this morning. I may redo the frying pan, and then I find if I just put my sleep system away, everything seems almost like half done. That just takes up so much room. The sleeping bag in its stuff sack compressed, and then the sleep mat deflated, rolled up, put away, and then you've got almost like a whole floor to work with, and next thing you know, it's almost ready to be put in the bags. So I'll bring that ground sheet out and then do my usual, start putting everything on that just to keep it off the ground, really stop it getting muddy, and I can also put things in piles. So first up, get my washing up bucket out, some detergent, the sponge and my tea towel, and get all the washing up done, ready to be packed away. I'm not really one for gadgets, but I do like this little mini pump. It will pump up the air mat when I get here, but it also works in reverse. It sucks all the air out. It almost shrink wraps it. That just makes rolling it now so easy. All the air's been sucked out of it. There you can see my recent repair. Did that up at Blackpool Travel Lodge. And there's the previous one. As usual, I've been through this many times before. I put everything out in piles so it helps me get my bags packed easily, and it also makes sure I don't forget anything, like the sheath for the knife. I've still got to locate that before I pack it away. This is my sleep system. I used a Snug Pack Softy 10 Harrier. You can see it's got a comfort of -7 and a survival rate in the low of down to -12. I was toasty warm in that last night. I've got two sleeping bags, my summer one and my winter one. They're both Snug Pack Softies. The summer one is a Softy 3, I think. This one's a little bit more bulky. I'm going to compress that shortly. That'll make it packed down even smaller. My sleep mat, as you can see, seen better days. It's a Sinmat UL7. I can't remember the name of the brand actually. I think that means it's 7 centimetres in depth, and it's got a thermal rating of about 4.5 R, I think. Again, keeps me toasty warm, and it also keeps me very comfortable. It's had 2 punctures in the 10 or so years I've had it. Repaired both, still going strong. You can see the stuff sack's seen better days. I'm not one of these people that has a brand new bit of kit every outing. If it works, I stick with it. I bought that in 1999 actually to cycle across America in 2000, because I knew I'd be crossing the Continental Divide in late winter, early spring. This is a recent purchase. It's a Mountain Warehouse stuff pillow. It really is a pillow. I've tried inflatable ones and I just cannot get on with them. I find them too uncomfortable. And this is just a Euro Hike cotton mummy liner. That made a difference last night, it really did. And the great thing is, you take that home and wash it. You don't have to wash that as often. That's synthetic, so you can just chuck it in the washing machine actually, unlike a down one, which has to be specially cleaned. So that's my sleep system. I've been wanting to make this announcement for a while now, so I think now's a good time actually. I recently passed a milestone, a landmark. I got 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, so thank you so much to everyone who's been there from the beginning, and welcome to all the new subscribers. Hope you enjoy what you see. The 1,000 is relevant because that's when you can monetize your channel, and I have no intention of monetizing it. I've never wanted to. Just let me be very clear about this. I understand people a bit entrepreneurial, they want a second income, a side hustle. I've done things like that myself in the past, but it's not what I want. I want to keep this channel vlogging. I'll never ever sponsor anything or recommend anything. I'll just give you my personal opinion. And things like cycling and camping are so subjective. You know, a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. And the other thing I would say is, I also want the channel to be about me and what I do. And what I mean by that is, I started off by vlogging my long distance cycling, and then I included some camping. I've actually included churches recently, and I've done other stuff. Sometimes I've just done a little bit of a Blackpool when I'm been on holiday, and sometimes I noticed I'll lose some subscribers when I post a video, and that's absolutely fine. It really is. I get it. I get why some people maybe signed up originally because they wanted to see long distance cycling and they're not interested in churches, or people who signed up because they'd seen one of my church's videos and not interested in history or camping. I really get that. If you do stick around, thank you so much. But you know, again, if it's not for you, that's also fine. It really is. I want to just keep my channel as authentic and true to me as possible. Once again, that's not a criticism of people who want to monetize their channel. I really do admire some people who can give up their job and live off YouTube full time, but it's just not for me. And again, it gives me the freedom to really take breaks from YouTube. I'm not chasing the algorithm. I really don't chase subscribers. You'll never hear me sort of saying, oh please, if you like this, press down there, that sort of thing. No, really, if you like what you see, great. If you've come along for one or two and you decide this is not for me and you unsubscribe, that's also fine. It really, really is. I'll never be accepting free gifts and doing reviews. I promise you that's never going to happen on this channel. Once again, if other people choose to do it, that's absolutely fine. It's not a criticism, it's just a choice I've made. It's coming up to rubbish time, so I've gathered up all the wood apart from that leg support there that I didn't use. I deliberately didn't burn that last night because I was trying to keep some back for a fire this morning, thinking I may need it. So I'm just going to walk into the woods and scatter it, probably throw it around a little bit with my gloves just so it doesn't look like a dump, and it would just rot down into the ground as it would have done. It was a fallen branch I took, by the way. I would never cut live wood. I mean, why would I want to? It's green, it wouldn't burn. I always go for dead standing wood, sort of thing. If you bend a branch and it snaps, that's dead. If it bends, it's not, and I don't use that. It wouldn't burn anyway, it's too moist. And this was just a really big fallen log. It had a lot of moss on the outside, but you can see once I cut it into logs and then split it down the middle, you can reveal that most of it's quite dry. Not wet, it's a bit damp in places, but that's the great thing about that collapsible wood burner. Once you put it on the stove, it actually really does start drying out very quickly and it burns really, really well. Here's the cans from last night ready to be crushed, and my Ben's original lemon chicken cooking sauce, and there's all the rest of my rubbish. There'll be more in a minute. I always bring 2 carrier bags out for rubbish and contingency. One of them you can see was my saddle cover last night, and that's what all that will be going in. Then I'll tie it up just before I leave because there's always other bits of rubbish I come across. Then I'll just bungee that to the back of the bike, dump it in the first bin I come to, or I may even take it home actually because I'm so close. Okay, I've started leaning the panniers up against the bike. I've got it all unlocked. That's my Sea to Summit water bag. That screws up really small. I'm just hanging that there to drain it. Topped up all my water bottles, had a wash, clean my teeth. You can see I've got stuff in piles now, and I've got to the stage now where I'm going to dismantle the stove. So all that's left in my living quarters are the clothes that I'm going to change into, and the bag's ready to put what I'm wearing now into. Oh, I need to take the fairy lights down as well, and I'll be rolling the pipe first of all, then taking that over to the woods, scattering the ashes, scuffing it all in, and then I'll bring it back, pack it, and that's what it'll be going down into. Folds down into that collapsible woods walker bag. There's the dampener already, and the collapsible wood dryer. Okay, this is always a bit of a messy job, so I try and do everything clean first and then do the messy at the end. I've got a towel ready, I've got some water to wipe my hands down if I do get a bit sooty and dusty. There's the stove, how's the tent? Taking the lid off it. Just got these 4 hinged clasps holding that on. You can see there's quite a bit of burnt wood debris in there. There's a smoked window, look, that's easy enough to clean off at home. There's the lid there. I'll walk that over, scatter it in the woods, and then trample it in. And then I've already rolled the pipe. It's got this shape memory, so when you roll it out from that position, it curls at 90 degrees into the flue. When it's a little bit noisy when you roll it and unroll it, because it clangs a little bit, echoey, and then it just rolls up to that. I suppose that's no longer than, well, that's shorter than a bicycle pump, and probably about the diameter of my wrist. You can see I've got the rings around there. There's the adapter to fit it into the stove. There's a spark arrestor, and there's the dampener and the extra stove jack. Said this before, when I first got the tent it came with this dedicated stove jack. Some people said just form a St Andrew's cross with a Stanley knife. Other people sort of said no, that'll scorch it. Cut a hole. So I cut the hole and then suddenly realised I should have done the crisscross. That was my mistake. You cannot buy that size online. I haven't been able to find it. It's a dedicated stove jack for that particular tent. So all I did was I went online and bought the standard size, and I just put that over the pipe so it seals it from rain when I get in there. And yes, it does touch the stove jack, but it's designed for heat. It's like a soldering pad or an oven glove. It scorches, but it doesn't allow the tent to burn. Anyway, time to get that emptied. Then it simply folds up in on itself. The legs go in, and then it goes in that bag, which is not much bigger than a laptop bag, to be honest. A little bit deeper, obviously, but not much. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, all folded down in on itself, flat packed, lid on top. That'll go in the canvas bag. Cut the rubbers there just to protect the glasses. I'll put those in. Then the main stove will go in the bulk of the bag, and then the pipe and all the accessories will be rolled down at the bottom. And there is the bag. I don't know how much it weighs, it's not that much. The great thing is once you whack it in one of the rear panniers, you can just pad it out to stop any vibration and rattling. With all the spongy stuff like my tent slippers and the sleep sack and pillow and anything that will wedge down between it, and it just fits in the pannier really, really easy. I packed so much in there, it looks like I've put nearly everything in there. I've still got 3 panniers, one rear one, that's for the sleeping bag and my cook stuff there, and the tent will be going in there. That rolls up quite thin, as well as the inner tent, and then just I'll wedge down things like the ground sheets and these slippers. Then all my clothes, my light stuff will be going in the front panniers. I'm not even going to use the bar bag on the way back. I'm just going to roll that up and put it in one of the panniers. I pulled the inner tent out. What's my bedroom, living area. As I said, it forms a straight line right behind the pole, and then there's the elasticated hook which hooks up on the pole, and then the 3 rear pegs peg it out in almost like a semicircle or half of an octagon. What I found is when you first go in there and you're trying to put it up in the semi-dark, it can be a bit confusing. So what I've done is I've just tied these bits of ribbon round, so I know the two that are going to be to the left of the pole and the front of the pole, so that way you've got the straight line. Then you just hook up the elastic, go in through the back door, and it's much easier to peg it out. It may just be me being a little bit not very coordinated, but I find that's what works for me really. Once again, I take the tent down in the reverse that I put it up, so I keep it procedural. It means I'm less likely to forget anything. The last thing I want to do is leave tent pegs in the ground by mistake. You know, a child could step on them or an animal injure them, or I just lose them. That's just not good practice, is it? So I went round and took all the pegs out of the 7 guy ropes, and then I took the 4 surplus pegs out of the octagon shape, if that makes sense. So now it's just got north, south, east and west in, so there's 4 to go. This is the point where I go in and take the pole down, zip the tent up. Now I just literally picked up the top of the tent, pulled it up, and it almost folds itself. I'm not too obsessive about folding tents up out on the road, because it's going to go in the airing cupboard. If it's got wet, it'll go on the washing line, and then it gets properly packed at home. So now it's just a case of putting the pegs and the pole in, rolling it, putting the band round it, putting the stuff sack next to that one. Now we have my 2 tents. It's a mountain cattle camping hot tent. That's the outer fly sheet version. You can use that on its own. I found the inner is much nicer. It just gives you that wind protection, especially when the stove heat dies down. I don't even know what brand that is. I didn't go for branded names, I forget what they all are, but the ones that everybody seems to use, just because it was an experiment. I thought if I don't like it, you know, I can just sell the stuff on. I haven't invested much, but I've really taken to it. I actually really do like hot tent camping. Well, that's me all ready to go. Just scuff the ground down as much as I can, like any campsite. That grass will recover in a few days. I've got all my rubbish with me. The only waste I've left is natural waste buried in those woods, and bike's all ready to go, apart from just taking the pegs and the guy ropes out. I just realised I came down in the big chain ring, so I need to get on the small chain ring riding over the grass before I get that slope, 'cause it's hard enough getting up there anyway. So I'm just gonna de-guy rope and de-peg the bike, stop it falling over, put those in the bag in one of the rear pockets, and I'll be on my way. Coming up to midday, ready to go. That's where I was camped. That's the jetty down to the river. There's my bike. I managed to get it in the low chain ring so I can make an attempt to ride up here. If you got this far, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care.